Hola a todos, espero que ustedes estén bien. Today we are going to be reviewing the CSEC Spanish May-June paper 2, 2025. So we're going to review the one from last year, right? No. Sí, vámonos. Okay. As you know, the first section is going to be the situations. So they're going to present you with 10 situations and you have to respond accordingly. So write in Spanish the information required for each of the situations described below. Do not write more than one sentence for each situation. For some situations, a complete sentence may not be necessary. Do not translate the situations given. Do not use abbreviations. Okay, now, situation A. Your friend Anna invites you to a party. Write the WhatsApp message you sent to her accepting the invitation and saying how you will contribute to the party. So we have to include two pieces of information. Firstly, we have to accept the invitation and then we have to say how we are going to contribute. So, acepto la invitación y te voy a ayudar con las decoraciones. I accept the invitation, so that's for the first part of the situation. And te voy a ayudar con las decoraciones. That would be my contribution, okay? So that situation required two pieces of information. Moving along. B. You and your cousin arranged to go shopping in the mall, but you are running late. Write the text you send mentioning the time you will be there and where the two of you should meet. Once again, two pieces of information are required. So the first piece of information is going to be the time, right? The time that you will meet as well as the location. So llegaré a las 5. I will arrive at 5 o'clock. So that's the first part. Y podemos encontrarnos en el supermercado. Encontrarse is the verb to meet up. Sí, podemos encontrarnos en el supermercado. Mhm. So I will arrive at 5 o'clock and we can meet up at the supermarket. Mhm. So the supermarket is the second part of the situation. So that is where we should meet. C, your Spanish teacher is ill and will not be in class. Write two instructions she sends on the group's WhatsApp chat with one thing that must be done and one thing that must not be done during her absence. So we need two pieces of information. We need to mention something that must be done and something that must not be done. As you know, there are many ways there are many ways to express an obligation in Spanish. So I just chose the imperative. Estudien para sus exámenes. Study for your exams. That is the instruction that must be carried out, or the part that must be carried out. And then in terms of the what must not be done, y no coman en la clase. So using negative imperative. So study for your exams and do not eat in the class. One thing that must be done and one thing that must not be done. Muy bien. D. There is a shoe sale at your neighbor's store and you want her to put aside a pair for you. Write the message that you send her giving two details about the shoes, okay? So you just need to mention two details about the shoes. Son talla 10 y azules. So they are size 10 and blue. We already need to say los zapatos because we already know that we are talking about shoes. So son talla 10 y azules. Mhm. Y your mother needs to update her Facebook profile. Lol. Write the new information she adds mentioning a leisure activity she enjoys and her preference in music. Okay. Again, two pieces of information. you need to mention something that she likes and the type of music that she or her favorite type of music. There are many ways that we can do this, but we're trying to keep it as simple as possible, right? So, disfruto del senderismo. I enjoy hiking. Or I could even say me gusta el senderismo, but yeah. Disfruto del senderismo y me gusta el pop. So I enjoy hiking and I like pop, as in pop music. Muy bien. F. Your community is having a dinner to raise funds. Write the note you send to the events team requesting the number of tickets you want and asking for the total cost. So again, we have to provide two pieces of information. The first piece of information is going to be the number of tickets that you want, and then you have to ascertain the price. So you don't have to ask a question to get this information. You can pose an indirect question. For example, me gustaría tres entradas. I would like three tickets. Y necesito saber cuánto cuestan. I need to know how much they cost. So that's indirect. I'm not asking you, well, cuánto cuestan, even though it's there, but the question is indirect. So I mentioned the amount of tickets that I would like, right? And I also requested that they put, I also asked for the price. Necesito saber cuánto cuestan. Muy bien. G, your school's football team is preparing for a competition. Write the text message the coach sends giving the times for practice and saying how you should dress. So you have to give the times for practice and you have to provide instructions with regard to dress. Okay. So vamos a entrenar. That's a false start on my part. Vamos a entrenar los martes y los viernes a las 4 y deberían llevar su uniforme de fútbol. Simple, simple, right? We are going to train on Tuesdays and Fridays at 4 o'clock. So those are the times for practice. Y deberían llevar su uniforme de fútbol. And you should wear your football kit. I mean, you're going to train, so what would be better than training in your kit? Yeah. Okay. H or H. Your aunt who lives abroad messages you to find out what activity you would prefer to do during your stay with her. Write the response you send, giving your preference with a reason. So you have to say what you would prefer to do, and you have to provide a reason. So, prefiero ir a la playa porque me gusta nadar. Simple. I prefer to go to the beach because I like to swim. Ujú. Pero yo no sé nadar. Tengo que aprender a nadar. Ajá. Y, or I, you think you are coming down with the flu, poor you, and will be absent from school. In the note of apology you send to your teacher, state one symptom that you have and what you are doing to get better. Okay, so you have to first apologize, right? Note of apology. So, lo siento mucho. Mhm. Then you have to mention one symptom. So, tengo una fiebre, which means I have a fever. And what are you doing to get better? Pero tomo medicamento. So I am very sorry. I have a fever, but I am taking medication. So I apologized. I mentioned the specific symptom and what I am doing to improve it or what I'm doing about it. Okay. Well, I actually don't even need to say I am sorry because the situation said in the note of apology. So I don't really need to say lo siento, but we can be a bit extra sometimes. So technically speaking, I would only need to mention the symptom and what I am doing to treat that particular symptom, right? Hmm. Yeah, because the more information you provide, the more likely you are to make mistakes. So I always recommend that students be as concise as possible, okay? Hmm. J or Jota, your class is planning a trip to a Spanish-speaking country. Whoopee. Write the note your mother sends to your teacher asking for two details about the upcoming trip. So two details. Again, you can ask directly or you can ask indirectly. And I chose the indirect method. So, me gustaría saber cuánto cuesta y cuándo van. So, I would like to know how much it costs and when are you going. Mhm. I could have just asked cuánto cuesta or cuándo van. So, those are direct questions, but I chose to ask the question indirectly. Mhm. Bueno, so this concludes section one, which is the situations, mhm, or which comprises the situations, okay? Now we move on to section two, the letter, the informal letter. So let's see what scenario we have here. Mhm. So you recently attended your school's graduation dance and want to tell your Bolivian friend about it. Write the letter you sent to him or her in which you include the following. Details about your graduation dance, place, date, time, how, and with whom you went, what you did in preparation for the dance, an incident that happened at the dance and how you reacted, plans that you will make now that you have graduated from school. Mhm. So this is the letter. All right. So of course we have to put the date. So the date, Viernes 12 de septiembre. We always put our date in the right hand corner like this. And then then we go to the left hand corner and we address the recipient, right? In this case, our Bolivian friend is going to be Manuela. So our friend is a girl. And because she's a girl, we have to say querida. If it were a male, we would have said querido. But because it's a female, querida. Okay? So dear Manuela. Hola, ¿qué tal? Espero que estés bien, al igual que tu familia. That's a standard way to start the letter. You always greet the person and inquire about their well-being. Okay? So, hello, how are you? I hope that you and your family are well, right? Quería compartir mi experiencia del baile de graduación contigo. So now we are mentioning the purpose of the letter, which is going to be our purpose for the letter is to share our experience at the graduation ball. So I wanted to share my experience at the graduation ball with you. Now we get into answering some of the cues, providing some of the details for the cues. So now we are going to talk about the graduation dance, so details about it. Sucedió en el auditorio el 6 de septiembre a las 6 de la noche. So it occurred in the auditorium, mhm, on September on September 6th at 6 p.m. So it occurred in the auditorium on September 6th at 6 p.m. So we have the date, the place, the date, the time. Now we have to see how and with whom I went. Where was it? Okay, so mi papá me llevó y fui con mi novia. So my father took me and I went with my girlfriend. So I mentioned how I arrived there, which was my dad. My dad took me and I went with my girlfriend. Okay, so the first the first cue, all of that information has been presented in my introduction. Now we move on. So the next thing we're looking for is going to be what you did in preparation for the dance, okay? Para preparar, compré un traje y practiqué algunos bailes porque quería impresionar a todos. So to prepare, I bought a suit and I practiced some dances because I wanted to impress everyone. So that was my preparation. I bought a suit and I practiced some dances so that I could impress everyone. Now, the next part, our next piece of information that we had to provide is an incident that happened at the dance and how you reacted, or in this case, how I reacted. Okay. Por desgracia, una de mis amigas se cayó y se rompió la pierna derecha. Unfortunately, one of my friends fell and broke her right leg. So now we have started to mention the specific incident, right? Por suerte, había un médico ahí que la atendió inmediatamente después de la caída. Luckily, there was a doctor there that attended to her immediately after the fall. So now we mention my reaction. Yo estaba muy asustado porque ella estaba gritando y llorando. I was very scared because she was shouting and crying. Mhm. Fui a ayudar al médico a colocarla en una silla de ruedas. So I went to help the doctor so I helped the doctor. It is an awkward transition, but I'm going to say I went to assist the doctor in placing her in a wheelchair. Does that sound correct? So I went to, let's just say I assisted the doctor in placing her in a wheelchair. I helped the doctor to place her in a wheelchair. Yes, yes. I helped the doctor to place her in a wheelchair. Just don't want, I do not want that to sound awkward. So I helped the doctor to place her in a wheelchair. Why am I getting so hung up on English? But anyways, yeah. So all of that would represent my reaction to the incident, right? Now we get into the conclusion. A pesar de, oh, before we do that, let us see what the last piece of information was. Plans that you will make now that you have graduated from school. A pesar de ese suceso, lo pasé bien. In spite of this event, right, or in spite of that event or incident, I had a great time or a good time. Ahora que me he graduado, les voy a enviar unas solicitudes de empleo a algunas empresas, ya que me gustaría empezar a trabajar cuanto antes. Now that I have graduated, I'm going to send some job applications to some businesses, given that I would like to start working as soon as possible. So those are my plans after graduation. Now that I have graduated, of course. Espero verte muy pronto. I hope to see you very soon. Un fuerte abrazo, big hug, strong hug. Juan, which is, of course, I. I am Juan. So 145 words. 145 palabras. 145 palabras. That's within the limit because the limit is 130 to 150, right? Yes. So yeah, that is my letter. Great. Let us move on. Contextual dialogue. So using 80 to 100 words in the insert provided, Complete the dialogue between you and your friend Manuel. Hmm. How coincidental because my Bolivian friend's name was Manuela. But don't mind me. No me hagan caso. Right. Given your responses. You and your Colombian friend Manuel, okay, this person's from Colombia, are having a conversation about an upcoming birthday that you are going to celebrate. You discuss all details and activities that will take place. So responses to all the cues listed below must be included in the completed dialogue. I mention of when and where, or just say one. Mention of when and where you will celebrate your birthday. Two, discussion of preparations to be made for the celebration. Okay, done. Three, mention of who will be attending the celebration. Four, discussion of activities that will occur during the celebration. And five, invitation to the celebration and offer of accommodation. If there's one thing that I like about the dialogue is that even if you lose your comprehension, meaning that you become lost in the dialogue, the cues actually help you to know what information you must provide. So that's why I like this. I like this section, right? All right, complete the dialogue below. So of course, Manuel is our friend, and we have to provide like our responses, okay? All right, Manuel. Me dijiste que vas a hacer una fiesta grande para celebrar tu cumpleaños. ¿Cuántos años vas a cumplir y cuándo y dónde será la fiesta? So you told me that you're going to hold a huge party to celebrate your birthday. How old are you going to be? And when and where is the party going to be? When and where will the party be? When and where will the party be? Okay. So in order to know what I should say, I have to read ahead and see what Manuel says afterwards. Yo también prefiero celebrar en casa y la tuya es bastante espaciosa. Pero dime algo de la preparación que vas a hacer para esta celebración. Me too. I prefer to celebrate at home and your house and la tuya, meaning your house and yours is quite spacious. But tell me something about the preparation that you're going to tell me about the preparation that you're going to make for this celebration. Okay. So it means that my response has to indicate that I would like to hold the party at my house because he basically agreed that he prefers to celebrate it at home. And obviously, I have to respond to the questions that were posed, right? So I was asked how old I was or I was going to be. So I would say, voy a cumplir 13 años. When is the party going to be? La fiesta será el 8 de noviembre. That is actually my birthday. Y prefiero que sea en mi casa. And I prefer it to be at my house. Mhm. So by looking at his response, you know for sure that we have to say that we prefer the party to be at our house because he agreed that he likes to celebrate at home, right? hmm And that was also the mention of when and where you will celebrate your birthday. So that's the first answer that you must provide. Now let's continue. So after he says, me too, I prefer to celebrate at home and yours is quite spacious, but tell me something about the preparations that you're going to make. So that's what Manuel says. Then I have to skip to Manuel again and see what he says. Claro, con una sala tan grande necesitarás mucha decoración y mucha comida y muchos refrescos. ¿Quién va a hacer todo este trabajo? Of course, if a room, with a living room, so with such a big living room, you will need a lot of decoration and lots of food and lots of drinks. who is going to do all of that? Basically, who's going to do all of that? Now, the question, so he said earlier, tell me something about the preparation. And what did he say after? Of course, he said with a living room so big. So obviously, you're going to have to say that you're going to hold the party in the living room. You're going to use the living room for the party. So voy a usar mi salón para todo. Mhm. So that would make sense given what Manuel says afterwards. Con una sala tan grande necesitarás mucha decoración. So he said, I'm going to use my living room for everything. So let's continue. So at the end, he says, who is going to do all this work, right? And once again, we skip to what Manuel says afterwards. Bueno, tu mamá cocina muy bien, así que la comida será sabrosa. Y tus hermanos y tú harán, harán un buen trabajo con la decoración. ¿A quiénes vas a invitar a esta fiesta? So it says, well, your mother cooks very well, so the food will be delicious, and your brothers and you will do a great job or a good job with the decorations. Who are you going to invite? Whom are you going to invite to this party? So obviously, the last question was ¿Quién va a hacer todo ese trabajo? So now we have to say who is doing what. That's what we have to say. So that would be the second cue. When I mention the preparations that are being made for this party. So I said mi mamá va a cocinar. Obviously, I have to say that because he says tu mamá cocina muy bien. And then he talks about tus hermanos y tú will do a good job with the decoration. So so the answer is actually there, right? That's why you have to read ahead to figure out what you should say. So I said, mi mamá va a cocinar y mis hermanos y yo vamos a decorar el salón. So my mother is going to cook and my brothers and I we are going to decorate the living room. And that, of course, would make sense based on what follows. So now we continue. Whom are you going to invite to this party? All right. And that's actually the third cue when it says mention of who will be attending. Who are you going to invite to this party? Let's see what he says after. Son muchas personas y profesores también. Parece que va a ser una fiesta inolvidable. Pero, ¿qué actividades habrá en la fiesta? So he says son muchas personas. So obviously you have to mention the persons that you're going to invite. And one of the persons that you invite must be a teacher. Well, in this case, teachers, right? Y profesores también. So, voy a invitar a todos los alumnos de mi clase y a algunos profesores. So, the first part here tells you the answer. You have to mention persons that you will invite, but you have to invite teachers. So I said a algunos profesores. Great. And then the last question was, ¿Qué actividades habrá en la fiesta? What does Manuel say after? He says, buena mezcla de deporte, juegos y diversión. Y claro, habrá música para bailar. All the answer is there. So you have to have a sport, you have to have games, and you have to have like something fun. So that's what he says, a great mixture of sport, games, and fun, right? And of course, there will be music. So four things you have to have. So, vamos a jugar al baloncesto, al escondite y habrá música para bailar. So that would be my mixture of sport, fun, and sport games and fun. Sport en baloncesto, juegos, game, which is the escondite, hide and seek. And that's also fun as well. So those two, so escondite, hide and seek, basically accomplishes both of those objectives. And then, of course, habrá música para bailar. And there will be music to dance to. Mhm. Yep, muy bien. So let's see what he says after. Lástima que este cantante no pueda asistir, pero he oído que el DJ, I'm going to say DJ, because that doesn't sound good to pronounce it in Spanish, que mencionaste es muy bueno. Habrá música para todos. Ojalá pudiera estar ahí. Uh, okay. He says, it's a pity that that singer can't attend. Whoever singer that is, of course. But I've heard that the DJ that you mentioned is very good. There will be music for everyone. Hopefully, hopefully he can be there. Yeah, hopefully he can be there. Mhm. Well, let me not say wait. I think in this case it could be talking about Manuel. It could be talking about Manuel, not the DJ, because obviously I said that he will be there. So I think he's talking about himself. So he says, hopefully I can be there. Hopefully, basically. Or I could be there, right? So now that he says that he talks with the DJ, so that DJ you have to mention who that DJ is. So you say, sí, el DJ Jorge estará en mi fiesta. Mhm. Yeah. And after he says, claro, habrá música para bailar. Sí, el DJ Jorge estará en mi fiesta. Mhm. So he says he heard that the DJ that you mentioned is very good. So you have to mention the DJ that's going to be there, right? Right. So discussion of activities that will occur during the celebration. Okay, we've already done that. So now we're going to get on to the last part. So he says, hopefully I can be there. So what does he say after? Gracias por la invitación. Me encantaría ir, pero tengo que pedir permiso a mis padres ya que la fiesta no será en mi país. So thanks for the invitation. I would love to go, but I have to ask my parents for permission, given that this party will not be in my country. So of course, then I have to invite him. If that's the response, I have to invite him. So estás invitado a la fiesta, because he says hopefully basically he can make it, or he would love to be there, right? So I said you're invited. Estás invitado a la fiesta. Eh, so after that, he says, ¿de veras? Estoy seguro que me darán permiso si saben que no tengo que quedarme en un hotel. So really, I'm sure that they will give me permission if they know that I do not have to stay at a hotel, right? So basically, you have to offer accommodation, which is the last point, invitation to the celebration, offer of accommodation. So my offer is going to be, puedes quedarte en mi casa. You can stay at my house. Mhm. And then what does he say afterwards? Sí, te prometo que voy a darte mi respuesta pronto. Hasta luego. Yes, I promise that I'll give you my response soon. See you later. Mhm. So all I said was that, entonces cuéntaselo cuanto antes. So tell them as soon as possible. Cuenta, say refers to the parents, of course. Say a los padres, right? So cuéntaselo cuanto antes. So tell them as soon as possible. Yes, and he says, I promise that I'll give you my response soon. Yeah. And the word count was 89. 89 palabras. All right. So that's our dialogue. Now we're going to get to the last section, which is the reading comprehension. As you know, the passage is in Spanish, but the questions are in English, okay? So let's read the passage. Vamos a leer el texto. Ujú. Me gusta mucho comer chocolates. No me importa qué tipo sea, chocolate blanco, oscuro o con leche. Me encantan. Creo que este amor por el chocolate es genético, pues a mi madre le encantaba también. Su preferencia, como la mía, es Boyer y Ferrara. Yeah. Cuando era joven me gustaba tanto los chocolates que mi madre trataba de escondérmelos, pero soy buena detective y cuanto más los escondía, más los encontraba. Su escondite favorito era en la parte trasera de un armario en el comedor. Cada vez que encontraba los chocolates, tomaba uno y volvía a ponerlos tal como estaban. Mi mamá nunca me vio tomarlos, pero ella sospechaba porque siempre faltaba algún chocolate. Ahora que soy madre, sufro igual que mi madre en cuanto a los chocolates. Ayer compré una caja de Boyer y automáticamente la escondí de mi hija menor en el armario. Esta mañana, cuando fui al comedor, vi a mi hija con la cara cubierta de chocolate. Parece que tenemos una nueva detective de chocolates. Answer in English the following questions based on the selection you have just read. Use a complete sentence for each response. Yes. So, what are two types of chocolate that the narrator enjoys? I think three were mentioned. So, you choose any two. White chocolate, dark chocolate, or chocolate with milk, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Chocolate, what is it? Chocolate milk. What is it? Right, right. But I chose the first two. So white chocolate and dark chocolate. Mm-hmm. So any two will suffice. Mm-hmm. B, why does the narrator think that her love of chocolate is genetic? And that was mentioned in the first part. Creo que este amor por el chocolate es genético, pues a mi madre le encantaba también. So she's saying that what is it? Yeah, she's saying that her love for chocolate is genetic because her mother also loved chocolate. A mi madre le encantaba también. Mhm. Okay. See, what mention is made of Boyer and Ferrara? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but who cares? So it says that su preferencia como la mía es Boyer y Ferrara, right? So those two brands are the mother's favorite, and it's also the favorite of the narrator, right? So these are the narrators and her mother's favorite chocolate brands. I'm gonna assume those are chocolate brands. Yeah. So D, where exactly were the chocolates hidden when the narrator was young? So that was mentioned here. Su escondite, so the hiding place. Su escondite favorito era en la parte trasera de un armario en el comedor. So her favorite hiding place was in the back part, parte trasera, the back part of a cupboard in the dining room, right? So that was where it was hidden. They were hidden in the back part of a cupboard in the dining room, right? E, what evidence shows that the narrator was a good detective as a child? And if you see the answers follow one after the other, right? Where was that? Right. So it says after oh actually no, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I thought they were in order, but I'm wrong. Okay. So the question is what evidence shows that a narrator was a good detective as a child? So it says, pero soy buena detective y cuanto más los escondía, más los encontraba. So the more she hid them, the more she found them. So that's why it is said that she was a good detective. So the evidence is in the fact that the more her mother hid them from her, the more she found them. Great. F, describe what the narrator did when she discovered the hiding place. Okay, so it says that cada vez que encontraba los chocolates, tomaba uno y volvía a ponerlos tal como estaban. So every time that she found the chocolates, she took one and put the rest, or put them, she took one and then put the rest back as they were, right? That's what she did. So she took one chocolate and put the rest just as they were. Next question. G, what made the narrator's mother become suspicious that she had found the hiding place? It says, mi mamá nunca me vio tomarlos, pero ella sospechaba porque siempre faltaba algún chocolate. So my mother never saw me taking them, right? But she suspected, but she was suspicious because one chocolate was always missing. So that's the reason. So she became suspicious because there was always a chocolate missing. H, describe the first thing that the narrator did when she returned home. So it says, ahora que soy madre, sufro igual que mi madre en cuanto a los chocolates. Ayer, which is yesterday, compré una caja de Boyer y automáticamente la escondí de mi hija menor en el armario. So she did the same thing that her mother did. She hid a box of Boyer chocolate in the cupboard from her younger daughter, la hija menor, okay? Mhm. Right. So, what evidence made the narrator say that she thinks there's a new detective? Well, she said, esta mañana, cuando fui al comedor, vi a mi hija con la cara cubierta de chocolate. So this morning, when she went to the dining room, she saw her daughter with her face covered in chocolate, or covered with chocolate, yeah. Covered with. Yeah, I'm going to double check, but it seems both probably can work. She saw her daughter covered in, yeah, let's say in, yeah, this was in, covered in, with her face covered in chocolate, yeah. With her face covered in chocolate, right. So that's the evidence. She suspects this because she saw her daughter covered in chocolate when she went, what is it with? Is in. Anyways, covered in chocolate when she went to the dining room. Yes. And finally, hoy sufro igual que mi madre. Explain why the narrator makes this statement. So this is one of those questions where you have to use the passage to justify your response, right? So it says, ahora que soy madre, sufro igual que mi madre en cuanto a los chocolates. So she says this, basically this means I suffer the same way as my mom did, in the same way as my mom did, right? What she's saying is that her daughter did the same thing that she did. So her mother faces the same, as a mother now, she's facing the same challenge that her mother did when she was a child. So that's why she says, hoy sufro igual que mi madre. I suffer in the same way as my mom. Yeah. So she makes this statement because she now has the same problem that her mother faced, which is the chocolates being discovered. Okay. So yes, eso es todo por hoy. Espero que este video haya sido muy útil. Muchas gracias por ver y buena suerte.